Hello and welcome into a new episode of Manx Radio's newscast, an opportunity to speak to those in the hot seat in more detail than what you might perhaps hear on The Breakfast Show, in Man and Line Update or the hourly bulletins. Now, the Department for Enterprise is defending its plans for the year ahead and key achievements from the past year. It aims to develop a national air services policy, advance artificial intelligence initiatives, finalise the delayed local economy strategy, and create 800 new private sector jobs. But is the political alliance correct in claiming there is a lack of substance and those at the top have been too quick to praise their efforts? I sat down with Minister Tim Johnston and the department's most senior civil servant, Chief Officer Mark Lewin. Tim Johnston, you broke your manifesto promise of not becoming a minister a little under a year and a half ago. When you went into that position, you said you wanted to bring clear leadership and targeted support. How well do you think you've done at providing clear leadership?
Yeah, I think I have. I think, clearly there was a job to do. I was in the department. We saw a lot of movement of ministers in a very short period of time. And people needed to stand up, and that's what I decided to do, and come in with a very clear idea. I think as a department set out very clearly its ideas for the future. It has a clear plan set out through the economic strategy and the island plan. We've got some clear targets that we've set out, and that's what we're setting out to do, and I think in many ways achieving against a very challenging background at the moment, as we all aware, and we all understand the cost challenges there's been, levels of inflation, and the challenges around business generally. But I think that makes it even more important that you do set out a clear plan as a government to help and support business where we can.
There have been businesses closing left, right and centre, most recently the hospitality industry crying out for action, staging a call to arms meeting and including accusations of a churn industry mentality too. Does that scream clear leadership to you?
I think it's important to recognise the challenges there are in the economy at the moment and have been over the last 2 or 3 years, and it's been a building problem. The question is how do you react to that? And I think as a department, and the importance of having within our department our executive agencies and having nearly 60 people from the private sector on those agencies working with government, recognising what the challenges are and helping set out a future is really, really important. But what we can't do, unfortunately, is wave a magic wand, and it is an incredibly challenging time, a lot of it outside the control of the island. But we need to listen and do what we can to help and support business, and that's what we'll continue to do.
Government has now launched a new support scheme to help the hospitality industry. What's the feedback been like so far?
Well, it's very early days. As I said, it was only launched a few days ago. We've certainly had some registrations already, and this will be an ongoing process so that people don't have to register before the TT. It'll be a process that will continue through the TT. It was very much about recognising the acute challenge. There was the recognition of the challenge of getting people to come and help over that period. It's in all our interests to make sure those businesses are fully open when they want to be over that period of time and making the most of the situation.
That scheme was launched in the same week that your department plan for the next year was received by Tynwald. It's been described as ambitious, but has also come under fire over a lack of clarity, not enough substance, accusations of it being disproportionate, and for looking at the past year through rose-tinted glasses. What's your response to that?
Well, I think there's always going to be those political members who have views on that, and we have to respect that. I think the important thing is we had that debate in Tynwald. It gives people and members the opportunity to bring their views forward. I think in response to that, I made it very clear that all of the agencies have already set out in great detail since the beginning of the year their plans for the year ahead. The department plan wasn't about then repeating all of that information. So that information is there, is available. Those plans are published, and any member of the public or any member can see those.
If we look at the plan, though, you've mentioned development of a national AI strategy, but there's actually no detail or anything about that in the department plan, never mind what it would do, why it's being explored, or when we could expect anything like that to be materialised. So Are the lack of clarity and substance fair comments?
Well, like I say, what I would do is remind that each agency set out their detailed plans for the year, including the digital agency. AI strategy sits within their remit, and there is a clearer discussion and plan within their report setting out the future, and that's accessible to anybody.
Now, you say you need to work together across different sectors to achieve the objectives outlined in the Island Plan and Economic Strategy. But the local economy strategy is nowhere to be seen despite your words. The strategy will be released by the end of the year, meaning 2023. It will be released, but it's not.
No, that's right. It's ongoing. We made it clear that, again, within the report, that we're not quite there with it yet. Again, I would stress that this is a very collaborative approach. This is working with the sectors in our domestic economy. Their input is incredibly important, and part of that and through the consultation is often more questions are asked, more detail is required, and certainly what I want to make sure is when the draft report does come forward, it is fully informed, and that has taken more time, but I think that's the right decision.
So do you accept that you've overpromised and underdelivered then?
No, I don't think that's right. I think, as I say, the important thing is we take all views into account, and if it takes longer to make sure that when we do come back, we have as a deep dive and as a detailed plan as possible, that's for the benefit of the economy at large, then that is the right thing to do.
Okay. Now, you're claiming a 2% increase of overall people employed, but unemployment is actually higher. So how are you basing this calculation?
I think unemployment levels are at record lows, around about 0.6%.
But they are higher than they were in the 12 months to April. There was 19 more people out of work in the 12 months to April. So where's that 2% increase of overall people employed?
Well, like I say, we've seen a 2% increase in the number of private jobs. That's positive. If you take at any moment and look at the unemployment level, of course, on a day-to-day, week-to-week, month-to-month basis, you will see differences. The question is, what is the overall trend? And the general trend shows that we have a major challenge in our economy. We have over 1,000 job vacancies, and we have very, very low unemployment. A normal economy would class full employment of around 3 or 4% unemployment. As I say, we got a figure of around 0.6%. That is a major challenge for us, and a major challenge for filling the vacancies we have in the economy.
And if I could add, it's still one of the top messages we get from right across the economy is that there is a need for more skills, more people. We see opportunities for growth, and we see that as a real important thing to keep at the top of our priorities. But there are also some real challenges if we're unable to find that, support that growth. And clearly some of those businesses, some of those sectors will have real challenges. We have more economically active people than we've had before. As the Minister said, unemployment is an important measure, but it's only one indication at a particular point in time, and we have all sorts of seasonal fluctuations around that. But the fact that we have more jobs in the economy, the fact we have more people employed in the economy is absolutely in line with the economic strategy that was set out.
Now, Minister, I'll come back to you, and I just want to establish something quickly. What would be your definition of an achievement?
I think when you set out your targets and goals, and you strive towards achieving those and ticking those off, I think that's really important to try and do that. To be ambitious, and to set goals, and recognise what the challenges are around you in the economy, and as a government bring forward plans to try and address and tackle those.
In your department plan, there's a section called 2023's Key Achievements. Digital and Business Isle of Man have all underperformed in terms of job creation. So are these not actually examples of where you've underachieved because you've missed the targets?
I think it's important to always set out clearly, the performance of each agency. Clearly, they all set their targets, absolutely, against a backdrop and a plan. Sometimes those are achieved, sometimes they're not, and that is always a challenge for any plan. But again, I would look at the overall picture of what we're trying to achieve.
if you go back a year ago, we, in the previous department, this is the third department plan, and that process, as the Minister said, of having an annual debate in Tynwald, I think is really important to have that level of challenge and response. But this is the first time we put those kind of indications in, and they very much were 18 months ago, nearly, indications of what we thought would happen. So what each of the 4 agencies, plus our locate team, plus our enterprise support, thought might happen in terms of pipeline. I think it's important to remember the government normally doesn't tend to create the roles, to create the jobs. It's very much about creating the environment and working with businesses who create those opportunities. And so in a sense, it's a prediction way over a year in advance, saying this is what we think is going to happen, and then making sure all the components are in place to try and support that growth. But there are many aspects that will change that throughout the months and years that follow, in terms of business decisions, in terms of challenges that arise, or in some cases different directions in which those agencies, the private sector boards, decide to do things that are slightly different. So
Okay, I want to look at a few of the figures in particular. One statistic from Visit Isle of Man, which says you had a PR reach of 5.8 billion. Is that really accurate?
And you'll understand when we talk about reach, it's about the number of people that have the opportunity to see and interact with that, and it can be individuals multiple times as well. So it's a standard term that's used in marketing circles.
But 5.8 billion, that is a huge figure.
And that reflects some of the so it to be in the top Skyscanner results for hidden gems, and there has been a huge amount of visibility through a variety of stories where the Isle of Man has touched around the planet in terms of people that would have seen something about the Isle of Man as part of that. But again, bringing it back to real, it had, as the Minister said, the visit last year had a really good recovery year. Indications are for this year is a really strong recovery as well. We continue to grow in the core and also growing at those shoulders, and we need to carry on doing that. So it's one measure. It's absolutely not the whole thing.
I think the important thing is making sure that we're having that global outreach, and I think it's about making sure that we're getting the message out to that new audience, as broader audience as possible, so that people understand and know about the Isle of Man and what we have to offer. I don't think it happened enough in the past, and we certainly want to make sure that it's happening in the future.
Business Isle of Man is claiming 170,000 views on its Love Manx Shop Local video. When we looked yesterday on YouTube, it had 503. Facebook was 1,600, and on X, formerly known as Twitter, 138. That's quite a discrepancy. So where are these other views coming from?
I think, again, on social media, it's not just the original source, it's then what happens to that in terms of being presented in other channels, being replayed, and those are the numbers that came back in terms of looking at, when we step back, what I think everyone perceived it as being a really positive example of how money in the economy flows around, and the value of keeping money within the island.
It might be a positive message, but we're missing like 168,000 views here, which your department is claiming that it has on this video, but it doesn't seem to have those.
Well, certainly that's the data that we have, and I think we can come back to you with some more examples of where that is. But it's not always in the primary source where you see it. It's also what happens to it thereafter.
Okay, I'll come to you, Minister. You must agree with Julie Edge that data has been skewed then?
No, I think that's not the case. I think the important thing is that the agencies have their sources of how they measure that data. I think absolutely right. They need to collaborate that, and the figures that have been put into their plans for the year ahead, or their performance from last year, are there to see, and they have to quite rightly defend those.
So are you saying that you don't believe those figures?
I've got no reason to believe why those figures aren't genuine. Otherwise, they wouldn't be in the report. As Mark said, it may not be direct; it may be through the indirect, and that's how they look and measure, using the software and the tools that are available to gather that information.
Okay, we'll move on. When you say your department has directly supported the retention of more than 37,000 private sector jobs, you talk about creating the right environment for jobs to be created and to be retained. How have you retained 37,000 jobs?
Well, I think the point is that the agencies themselves and the areas of the economy they cover are very much covering that job number. So it's really important to make sure that we're working with businesses, and that's why having those independent people on the agency boards, as I say, up to 60, and we're very grateful for the time they put into that, working with them, getting the feedback from them about the challenges within their sectors. That is how as a department, we work with them so we can make changes, we can look at policy, we can look at decisions, and we can look at funding to work with those sectors to make sure as a department, as a government, we are helping to sustain those jobs, and also to see how we can help indirectly them to create further jobs.
Nurses, only 10 have been appointed who are relocating, and graduates, more than 300 grad fair attendees, but only 20 hired. That's only 6%.
I think it's always hard. Let's go back to the kind of question on data. We can't track everything. We can track some things that we can see. So take the graduate fair, where we know within a day or so the amount of people, employers that were there, who had real jobs at that particular point in time, who've had positive conversations with young people looking and have firmed up on a role. Actually behind that, and then for many weeks, indeed months, sometimes connections are made and things will happen. So I think when we say something on the day, I think 20 actually is a really good, strong success. People are there not particularly to find a job that minute. They're there to see the broad range of things that might be available. They're there to have conversations. They're there to attend some of the keynote speakers to talk about some of the things that would be of interest to them. To actually have 20 people within sort of 24, 48 hours who've had that connection and had a real offer, I think is a fantastic outcome for those businesses and for those people. But equally, there are many, many things that happen beyond that thereafter, based on having had that event.
Out of all of these figures, how many of them are you confident are 100% accurate and bulletproof, and you could prove them?
Well, I think, as I say, if you look at the report, obviously it sets out clearly what was achieved in 2023. It sets that against what the ambitions were there, and then from that we take that and collate that. I mean, we look forward to the year ahead, and I think as you said earlier, it's a constant process, and we can't be held against every single number. But what we have to do is be ambitious and set out a clear plan, and that's the point of having the economic strategy.
But if you can't be held against every single number, then why include them if you don't want to be held to account with the numbers that you're publishing and you're saying these are our key achievements, but we actually can't back them up?
I think it's always important that we're open with the situation, set out our plans. As I say, last year we looked at helping to support 600 jobs. We managed 588, so we didn't quite hit that target. But at the same time, taking into account the headwinds and the macroeconomic situation, that has to still be seen as really positive. And of course, what we do is go away, reassess, and make sure that we come back stronger and as accurate as possible. But it's always been possible to set out figures and be able to stand by them 100%. It's always going to be a challenge, and that's not reasonable.
Thank you for making it to the end of the Manx Radio newscast. You are obviously someone with exquisite taste. May I politely suggest you might want to subscribe to this and a wide range of Manx Radio podcasts at your favourite podcast provider, so our best bits will magically appear on your smartphone. Thank you.